I am really happy and very pleased to welcome our next storyteller to the stage, Alexandria Delcourt.
Thank you. Okay. So, when I was 24, I got my heart broken in a real way for the first time. And this was someone that I was, totally madly in love with, only he was still in love with his ex, and I kind of knew, but, you're a little bit in denial, and it was real healthy. And anyway, that ended, and I was completely crushed, and my world was over, and the whole thing. So a few months later, I was lonely, and I was not in a great place, so I started, going out with this guy that I knew, so I wanted comfort, And I had known him a long time. He was a friend of mine. But I didn't really like him that much. But it was just, just the thing that you do. And anyway, I still wasn't in a great place a few months later. And, if you've lived here in Madison a long time, you know that sometimes, especially when you're not in a great place, Madison can start to feel really claustrophobic. You can't go anywhere without, seeing someone or having some memory of some place. And that's what was happening. So I called him up one day and I said, I have to leave. I have to get out of here, right now. We have to get out of Madison right now. And to his credit, he was like, great, let's go. Where do you want to go? And I didn't know, but I was 24, recently graduated college, and I had a car. And I wasn't going to ask my mom's permission. And we're just going to go. So we got in the car, and we're like, St. Louis sounds good. It's a good driving distance. It's not too close. We don't know anyone there, and it's not that far. So we're like, cool, let's go. So we get in the car, start driving to St. Louis, and on the way, it's 6 hours or something. On the way, it starts pouring rain, torrential pouring rain. And my car starts doing this thing. I don't know what it is, but the highway, right? And it starts going like that. And I don't know what that is, but I just assumed it was hydroplaning, right? And so I pulled over to the shoulder, and I thought everything was fine, so I didn't pull over that far. We were just kind of right over that line, and I turned the car off, and I turned it back on. I was very smart. And it won't turn on. And so it's night, it's dark, it's pouring, we're not far over the shoulder, and the car won't start, and I have no idea where I am. Because we haven't reached St. Louis, and we're just kind of in Illinois somewhere. And, I don't have a smartphone or anything like that, because it was a while ago. And so I have two options at this point. I can either, call my mother, because my mom is very Filipino, and she would be super anxious, and I'm not gonna do that. And the other option is I can call the cops. So I called 911, even though it didn't really seem like an emergency. I just didn't know what else to do. So I called 911, and I'm trying to tell them, I don't know where I am. But I sort of remember the last town that we passed, and so we're somewhere past that. And I turned my flashers on, of course. And the cops don't know where we are, and it takes them a long time to find us. And after about 30 minutes, 45 minutes of the flashers going on, the battery dies. So the flashers don't work anymore, and it's still pouring rain. And so we're like, okay, we can't wait in the car anymore because there's semis going past us. We have to leave the car and go wait in the ditch. And I had an umbrella, which was good. And so we're in the ditch, in the pouring rain, waiting for a tow truck or a policeman or something to come and find us. And the guy that I was with, he didn't have very much travel experience. Luckily I did, but he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to troubleshoot travel issues, and we had also just called the cops, and it's also the middle of the night, and he's also black. And so he starts chain smoking, and you remember they had those little Dell laptops that they used to have? He had one of those, and so he's nervous, so he opened up the laptop and he starts playing solitaire and chain smoking. And and I tell him no, if I need to charge my phone, I'm gonna need your laptop, stop. And so he does. Anyway. After, I don't even know how long, another half hour, 45 minutes or something, the cops eventually do come with a tow truck. And we get in the tow truck, and we're like, okay, we're going to be fine. Turns out we were somewhere north of Springfield, which is pretty far south in Illinois, anyway. And so we're in the tow truck, and he's like going to take us to a place, like car place, I don't know. And then, so we're driving, and I finally feel better. But then he gets a call on his phone, the driver, while we're in the car with him, telling him that his wife has just had a heart attack, and that he had to go to the hospital, like, right now. And so he tells us, like, I can't take you to the car place. Like, I have to go to the hospital. And we're like, yeah, obviously. And so he's like, but I can't just leave you here, so how about I take you to my house? And we're like, okay. So he takes us to his house, and he's like, I'm going to call a coworker of mine. I'll have him come get you. And then he left. And so we're waiting in this tow truck at some guy's house. And again, another 30, 45 minutes, another guy shows up. And he's like a young guy with his girlfriend, and they're going to like take us to a place. So we're like, fine, whatever. They take us to this little place, AAA approved. And he says it's perfect because there's a hotel right behind the car shop, because obviously car shop wasn't open at the time. And so he takes us there, he drops us off, and we go into this hotel. And it's the it's the kind of place where like you go in and you have to like get your room key behind a plexiglass window and slide the money under the thing. And we're like, whatever, we don't have anywhere else to go. So I gave him my credit card, and we get to the room, and it's disgusting. You know, there's a gash across the comforter, and there's stains on the walls, and it smells awful. And the mini fridge is just hanging open, and there's stuff in it, and it smells terrible, right? And the more we look around, the more uncomfortable I'm getting. And I tell the guy that I'm with, like, I can't stay here. Like, this isn't going to be okay. And I made him go back down to the office and give the key back and get our money back and all that stuff. And he said, he did it, which is good. And then he came back up and he said, it's fine. I told the guy my girlfriend wasn't comfortable and all these things. And I was like, whoa, not your girlfriend, but okay. So we don't have anywhere else to go, and we don't have a car. So we have no choice, really, at this point, other than to just put our stuff into a plastic bag and start walking down the highway. Again, it's pouring rain, and we just start walking and stopping in gas stations along the way, because you know, at least it wasn't like dark. There was some stuff around there. And I don't really know how long it was, but we walked and walked until we finally found a microtel Inn and Suites. That's a thing, right? And we get there, and we're like, okay, finally, this is going to be okay. This is like a good place. And I give them my card, except that I was 24 and super poor. And I had already used my card at the last hotel, and even though they refunded it, the funds weren't going to go back in immediately, so my card gets declined. And so then he's like, I got it. He pulls out his credit card, gives it to him, and he's also 24 and kind of a scrub, and his card gets declined too. So at this point, we are completely out of options, right? We just have nowhere to go, so I called my mother. And she was understandably appalled. But she paid for the room, right? She paid for the room, and she paid for a pizza, and we were good. And so we get into the hotel, and I'm a mess, right? And the only person I want to talk to is my ex, because even though we broke up, we're still friends. And so I call him, right? And I'm telling him all about what's happened today. Only I'm not saying we did this, me and this other guy, right? I just keep saying, like, I tried to drive to Springfield, and I got stuck, and I had to call a tow truck, and I did this, and I did that. I'm totally not acknowledging that the other guy was even there right in the room with me listening to the conversation. And I just was too young, you know, I wasn't old enough to understand what it meant, you know, when people say that hurt people, you know. And so what was happening is I was in love with this guy who was in love with his ex. Meanwhile, this other guy is in love with me, and we're all having a great time. And I was doing to him exactly what my ex had done to me, and I didn't get it until years later. And anyway, so it wasn't a good time. It took about 3 days for the car to get fixed, and in the meantime, we didn't have any way to get anywhere, and Springfield sucks, so we ended up hanging out at the Barnes & Noble across the street quite a lot, and my mom paid for the hotel rooms, and she paid for our snacks, and she paid for our coffee, and, you know, just wanted us to get home. And we didn't talk a ton during the 3 days that we were there. We just were there, not happy. And after 3 days, I get a call that the car is finally fixed and we can go home. So we walk back over to the car place, and I call my mom so she can pay for it. And we get the car and start driving home. And again, just not really talking, because we don't really have much to say to each other anymore. And 5-6 hours later, something like that, we roll back into Madison, only it doesn't feel so claustrophobic this time. It feels safe and familiar, and I know people here. And we don't really talk about it. We just come back. He goes home to his apartment. I go home to my apartment, and we just knew it was over. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandria. I once kicked a girl out of my car in the pouring rain. Just bragging. No, I don't know why that story reminded me of that, but I had a crush on this girl for years. And we would hang out all the time. We went to church together. And so we would hang out all the time, and then I introduced her to my best friend, Ian. And whenever me and this girl would hang out, I'm going to try so hard to not say her name. She would say, well, we should see if Ian's doing something. And I was like, yeah, we should, because we're like the three amigos, but like me and you got something special. And like the whole time she was like, yeah, we're the three amigos, and me and Ian, we got something special. And so I come to find out she likes Ian. We go out for coffee, and it's pouring rain out. And this is high school. This is like sophomore year of high school, a little melodramatic for me. And I am just like devastatedly heartbroken. And so like I said, we go out for coffee, and we're driving back. And like we had been having this conversation of like, oh, what do we do? Like, can we stay friends? And blah, blah, blah. And so then I turn to her while I'm driving her home, and I say, I just feel like you've been using me this whole time so that you can hang out with Ian. And she went, yeah. Like points for honesty, right? And so I pulled the car over and said, get out.